1 year after the Taliban made a cakewalk entry into Kabul on the heels of US troops scrambling out in an utterly chaotic exit, Afghans face multiple existential dangers, including widespread starvation, deep impoverishment, runaway unemployment, strangling drought, and rising cruel misogyny. In the midst of all these, women seem to be the country's only hope to stem the rot and restore some measure of normalcy to a brutalized society. Just two stunning statistics by the United Nations highlight the Afghan people's abject desperation. 97% of Afghans could be living in poverty by end of this year according to the United Nations. An entire country has been pauperized by decades of wars and occupations it did not necessarily provoke. For nearly 9 months, according to the UN, over 90% of the population have faced insufficient food consumption. Despite marginal improvements, Afghanistan still faces the highest prevalence of insufficient food consumption globally. To get a first hand perspective on the life in Afghanistan on the first anniversary of the US withdrawal, Mayank Shah Report spoke to Mahbooba Siraj, one of the most prominent and respected women's rights advocates, who is the founder of Afghan Women's Network. Siraj, who has lived in Kabul since 2003, was on a brief visit to America and spoke candidly about the country that America broke. We are in the midst of the first anniversary of the Taliban takeover as well as the US withdrawal.
Yeah.
I was reading a United Nations statistic, which is absolutely stunning to me. 97% of Afghans could be living in poverty by end of this year.
Yes.
The country has been pauperized. You live there, what do you see?
Poverty, poverty, and more poverty. It's unbelievable what has happened to these people. Unbelievable. There is, there was always a group of people that they were poor in Afghanistan. It's not something completely new for us. But at this scale, I have never seen anything like it. Every single person needs help. Every single person that I'm dealing with, Mr. Chaya, that every one of them, the men and women that are getting in touch with me, even the people that are working, even they have a job, they are still poor. Because if something happens, like a sickness, or they have to go to the hospital, that's it. Every single penny that they have, then it goes away.
Yeah.
So the poverty is unbelievable all over Afghanistan. Unbelievable.
And I mean, do you think it can recover from this level of impoverishment?
It's not going to be easy again. The fact that the people of Afghanistan, the women of actually what I'm trying to say, that the effects of this 1 year is not something that is going to be cured, very soon, very fast, by just doing a few things. It's not that. Because some things fundamentally have changed in Afghanistan, during this time. It really did. For example, one of the things that happened regarding the women, I just want to say, the way the women of Afghanistan have been treated. It has, for the women of Afghanistan now, with the men and their families. Now the men are held responsible by the Taliban to kind of be the police over their women. Not only the fact that they are the members of their families. They're policing on them. A story somebody said the other day that women were. There was a woman who was the head of her family. She doesn't have any parents, and she was working and she was running the family. She has brothers and sisters. And then since the Taliban, because she's not working, so she's no longer the head of the family. And she's, getting in touch with me, getting in touch with a lot of people and trying to get some money. And she brings the money in, and the family also, of course, but with the whole poverty thing, they're trying to help. And then at the same time, one day at one of these recent nights, at when they were having dinner or something at home, the brother said to her that from now on, you cannot get out of the house. You cannot go outside. You cannot go and look for a job. You cannot do anything because if you do, I'm supposed to be answering to the Taliban. And the
Astonishing.
woman turned around and said, "Have you forgotten? I was almost like your mother. I am the one that is actually was looking after you. I was the provider of this house." And the brother slapped her.
Whoa.
So that to me, this is an example of what is next that we have to be really dealing with. It's a whole, change in the whole society's outlook towards women one more time.
Right.
I was the witness of it once before. We worked on it. I'm going to be the witness of it. I mean, I'm witnessing it now one more time.
It,
So these changes are not something that is going to happen, by just giving people a little bit more food or something is going to change it. I call them the little band-aids that you put
right.
on people for it to cure the disease. So this is something that happens, and it's really absolutely awful.
You
And as
know
far as
this this extent of cruel misogyny
right,
by a group of, I mean, there are still a limited number of Taliban members.
yeah,
It's not as if the whole country is Taliban.
that's true. That's
I
true.
would argue that perhaps maybe even if there are, say, a million Taliban members, you have 10, 20 times that against them if they were to rise. Why is it that there is no societal pushback to this level of cruelty to women?
We were all thinking about that, and so was I, we all kind of had women we were talking, and I came up with one conclusion, which is really interesting.
Mhm.
But the thing is that, when I arrived in Afghanistan in 2003, and we started working with the women of Afghanistan at that time, the Taliban were not there. Of course, the side effect of the Taliban were there, but that was on the men of Afghanistan. Throughout these 20 years, we fought with the men of Afghanistan. We tried to, not the Taliban men, but the men in general. Those were the ones that they were abusing their women. Those were the ones, most of them, or some of them, that were not letting their kids go to school. All of those things that they were happening at that time by the men. The same thing is right now. The men of Afghanistan, Mr. Chaya,
Hmm.
and I really have to say this, and I'm sorry, maybe not all of them are the same, but a big majority of them, I can say. I hate generalizing, but I'm seeing it around because I see what the level of abuse that has gone up in the families, that the that the men are the ones that they are accepting it. Actually, the men of Afghanistan have no problems with the way Taliban are running Afghanistan. Actually, they have no problem with the fact that, but apart from some of them, and some of
Right.
them do have a huge problem.
Yeah.
They don't have any problem with the way the schools are closed, the girls are being, shunned away and put away, and all of that, and they're fine with it actually. So this is what is becoming very scary.
Right.
And the group of men that they were against this, or they were educated enough, and they were the ones that, they were working against this, all of this, are no longer in Afghanistan. They
Right.
left.
Right. It, that begs the question whether any intervention from outside, be it by the US or Europeans or anyone, any help intervention from external sources is not going to really change Afghanistan at societal, cultural, deeper level, the way you're describing the way men have been treating women.
No, you're right. This is something that we really have to work on it, ourselves. There is no doubt about it. And again, it's going to take, and the Taliban have to work with us. All of the men have to work with us. It's not that, the name of the game is not that we want to change the men of Afghanistan to become Westerners. The
Mhm.
Western ideas, that's not it. And they have to, the same way we have to prove it to them that is not, what we really want. And they have to understand that also, that that's not what we are doing. But for that, it takes another level of understanding that they should understand.
Yeah.
So, so that's that I know. But at the same time, Mr. Chaya, the one thing that I wanted to say, the situation of Afghanistan, the way Afghanistan is right now, it has a lot to do with the fact that what the world wants to do, with Afghanistan. The Europeans, Americans, our neighbors, everybody,
Right.
what they want to do, because of, like, for example, just a very simple example of it, that right now, al-Zawahiri was killed in Afghanistan, and then al-Zawahiri is killed, but just before al-Zawahiri was found and killed, the United States was talking about the fact that they want to, um, do something with the money that they are holding, and they wanted to return the money to the Afghan people. Okay, that's really, was very fine. It was a sign that we thought, with putting restrictions on the Taliban and doing it the right way, this might actually, alleviate this all out,
Right.
this thing that we have. So, but Zawahiri was killed 2, 3 days after. United States has changed their mind. They don't want to give the money.
Yeah.
Now here we are. Again, the people of Afghanistan is the people of Afghanistan, that we are being again the the we are the ones that we are answering, and we are the ones that we are paying, and we are the ones that are getting punished.
But what's the guarantee that if the US were to release the money, the Taliban would not just grab it and keep it for their own purposes and not pass it on to ordinary Afghans for their welfare?
No. I'm sure you're right. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee, but the world can work like with them, by giving a certain amount of money, and having and saying, for what it's going to be used specifically.
Right.
They can do that. That is fine.
Yeah, they can do conditional release of.
Yeah, it has to be conditional, and it has to be a kind of a check and balance on it, and it has to be seen by the world that is actually being spent on Afghanistan and for the goodness of the people of Afghanistan. You're right, there is no guarantee on Taliban. They can take all of the money and give it to Pakistan, for all I know.
Yeah.
Really, it's just like that's the way it's been going, lately. So we don't know, and that's important, really.
I was coming to Al Zawahiri, the fact that he was present in the heart of Kabul.
Yeah,
What does it tell you as an Afghan citizen in terms of the dynamic between the Taliban and Al Qaeda? It was reported that there were strains and tensions, and they were becoming sort of adversaries after the Taliban took over again. But
right.
it would seem by the presence of Al Zawahiri that it may not be that simple.
No, and also it proved another point to me. The point that actually it proved to me is the rift that is happening between amongst the Taliban. And that group of Taliban, there are also Taliban that they are pro-Zawahiri, and there are Taliban that they are not.
Right.
So that actually it proved that to me a lot more than anything else, because some of the Taliban really, I don't think that they wanted this, with Zawahiri, because that was the agreement with the Americans, and they were not supposed to. But there are some that they really couldn't care less, and that is the
Right.
group that actually the whole problem in Afghanistan is really amongst them right now.
I
And
see. I see. What
so
about the presence of someone like Sujaduddin Haqqani, who is the interior minister,
yeah,
and he has his own propensities? So how do you reconcile the two?
well, he is. But if you talk about Sirajuddin, then I have to go back and talk about Pakistan,
Yeah.
because if they don't have their a support as big and powerful behind them, then it's not going to be happening. They cannot do it. It's Pakistan that is actually helping Sirajuddin in the group of Haqqanis.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what it is. But these are, but as you know, the Taliban are such a secretive group of people, so they will never ever talk about something like this.
I see.
They're never going to mention it. And now there is something else that has happened, which is going to be very interesting. India has opened their embassy without the ambassador again in Kabul
Right.
a few days ago.
Yeah, I was coming to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another.
How do you see that as a positive sign in terms of exercising some leverage on moderating the Taliban?
Well, I don't know how to see it because in reality, Mr. Chaya, I'm very unhappy with with the way the government of India really dealt with Afghanistan so far. They really ignored us completely for a whole year. And then after a year, they decided that after they measured everything or whatever they did, I'm glad they did it. I'm
Right.
very glad to have that neighbor of ours, back in Afghanistan and the embassy open because a lot of people in Afghanistan need them, there is no doubt. But at the same time, as a neighbor, they did not do the very neighborly. But then again, what am I talking about? Look at the other neighbors that we have in Afghanistan. So look at Iran on one side, look at Pakistan on the other side. What am I talking about? Or Russia, for that matter. But
My, my sense is that there is perhaps a level of frustration at not being able to make any dent in Afghanistan for decades now. I think I'm just speculating that perhaps these countries and their governments see that there is no civil society pushback or to change the direction in which Afghanistan has gone for so long, often without their own fault because there have been two occupations, two wars since '89,
yeah.
and so many people have died. It's been impoverished, but I understand that part. But at the same time, in many countries, when something like this happens, civil societies tend to rise and push back. That doesn't seem to happen in Afghanistan. Maybe it's because it's a tribally structured society.
Well, the fact that it's a tribally structured society, it of course it has a fantastic effect on it. Absolutely, there is no doubt. But at the same time, right now, the civil society of Afghanistan, Mr. Chaya, has changed to the women of Afghanistan.
Right,
So the only pushback that the world and everybody is seeing is from the women of Afghanistan.
right,
And as long as, as far as even the civil society is concerned, and the men of the civil society of Afghanistan, I hope from Afghanistan, from within Afghanistan, not outside. Outside, they are standing with us for women, but the inside. If they don't stand with us and they don't support us, this is going to be extremely difficult. You're very right.
right.
That's going
Uh,
to take a long time.
Speaking of women, would you acknowledge that, at least in some ways, the US invasion and occupation and the follow up work that happened did help the women of Afghanistan considerably, especially in cities? And that may be one of the many reasons why women are able to resist.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the United States was in Afghanistan for the past for the 22 years that they were there. Remember, one of the reasons why they entered was because they wanted to save the women of Afghanistan. I mean that was what they used for whatever to cover up a whole lot of other things that were going on in real
Right,
you know politics of it. But the women were helped because women, of course, you can only help a group of people if the people would like to get that help and they want to help themselves. And the women of Afghanistan were very keen to do that. And they when the education, the schools opened, the doors open for the universities for them to get education, they were absolutely ready to jump on it and learn as much as they could.
right,
When the opportunities were given for them to go and study more and become more and take opportunities and take more responsibilities and do a fantastic work that the way they have done, they jumped on that too. So at the end of the day, you have actually in reality the only society that really, I mean, the young people also, of course, they showed a lot of boys and girls, men and
right.
women, but mainly the women of Afghanistan showed such a difference and such an advancement
That's true. Yeah.
in the way they changed their lives. Yeah, absolutely.
Given that your organization, Afghan Women's Network, and given your personal profile and lineage, are you inclined to jump in and maybe, even if it means there is resistance from the Taliban, to get involved more than you have had the chance to do so far?
Well, it's been a year. And everybody was saying to me that, we were all telling her, the ladies were telling each other, about that particular day, which it was yesterday, the 15th, that what a
Right.
dark day it was. For me, this dark day was 365 days of the year. Every single day of it was a dark. So it's not that one day. I'm not, my complaint with the world is that, throughout this time, whatever they did in Afghanistan, they didn't take a hold of their whatever they were doing, and find out, like, in about 6 months after that, or 3 months after it,
Right.
6 months after it, 9 months after it. They didn't take a whole an account of all of their deeds, what they were doing, whether it was working, it was not working, what it needed to be changed, what it not needed to be changed. No, none of those things happened, because for some strange reason the world does not believe in lessons learned. But at the same time, there is for me, uh, I'm a believer. I'm a believer of having discussions. I am
I see.
still a believer of that, because God has given us the power of tongue, not because for us to just flap it
Right.
around. It has given us, with our brain and our mind, to sit down and actually talk to each other and try to come up with some kind of an agreement.
Right.
So,
Yeah, speaking of which, since the Taliban is a fait accompli, at least for the foreseeable future, you have no option other than even domestically talking to them and try and influence it. So, what kind of role do you see for yourself in that area?
well, and the only thing, as an elderly, as a woman with the white hair, as a woman with the fact that she has been in Afghanistan for all of these years, she's still there. She's
Right.
working with her people. She's you know she's respected by her people, maybe loved by a lot of the women, and maybe not by all, but quite a lot of them, and they all know her, and the world knows her. Maybe they can use me. I can use myself, and be, the how shall I say, the facilitator of all of these discussions, and trying to sit down and make these parties involved, because it's not only one or two parties. There are many parties now involved, to sit down and actually realize, really think about, what is it that we really want. Is all of this for the goodness of Afghanistan, or is all of it, what we are doing, is for the, personal gains? If it
Right.
is for the personal gains, then I can kiss the stone that I have already carried, and leave it somewhere, and say, may Allah be with you. Bye, because there is nothing one can do. But if it is not, if it is really, you're seeing a future, not for your own pocket, not for yourself, but for a country, for close to 40 million people, men and women and children, and in a beautiful little country in the heart of Asia, that has been there for many, many thousands of years of history. If
Right.
you really want to, then let's work together and keep it alive.
Yeah.
So this is what I really want.
I
I
see.
really want to be a part of.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
mhm.
I mean, I've not eaten enough of your time, but as a final thought, do you see within the Taliban leadership a particular individual or a group of individuals that someone like you, can sit down and talk these things over?
I, I have a feeling that, yeah, with quite a lot of them, with some of
Oh,
them, absolutely not. But
okay.
there's quite a number of them that I would say it is possible. Really, it's possible. With a few of them, there is absolutely no possibility,
I see.
because the wall is too thick. What they
And
have.
but these are the people in control of the Taliban, or these are the people who are on the sidelines of the Taliban?
No, they are not on the sideline. They are amongst the Taliban. They are not. They
I
are in
see.
control. Actually, I should say.
I see.
Yeah, and this has to be really thought of very thoroughly, and we have to really sit down and do it. And especially in this time, in this area, and no matter what decision we make for the future, I really do believe that we should not forget our neighbors. The neighbors should be very much involved, and we really have to understand, to where they are standing, and where they want to be, how far they want to go with this.
Right.
Because if they start, doing what they've always done, and trying to stab us in the back, forget it. There's
Yeah.
there's not there's no way we can survive, truly.
Yeah.